Hi guys, welcome back. Right now we're in the airplane. We have just overflown the Chunchao VOR. We're on a radial of 270 from the Chunchao VOR, flying to the 7-mile Gulf point. At the same time, we're descending from 8,000 feet down to 6,000 until we reach the point Gulf. The way I have set up my radios, the VOR in VOR1 is on a frequency of 112.3, the Chunchao VOR, and the NDB, or the ADF, the NDB, I have set it up on a frequency of 268. That is the shallow 1 NDB. As we remember from the approach plate briefing, if our approach speed is under 180 knots, we are going to use the shallow 1 NDB during our next turn. As we start that right turn at Point Gulf, 7 miles out from the Chunchao VOR, we're first going to turn to the shallow 1 NDB, and then once we overfly the NDB, we're going to turn to a heading of 045 to intercept the localizer for the instrument guidance system into Kai Tak. Okay, we're at 6,000 feet. Let's level off. We're at 6 miles from the Chunchao VOR, so we got a mile to go before we start our turn. Our airspeed is under 180 knots. Okay, we're at 7 miles. Let's start a turn to the shallow 1 NDB. At the same time we start our turn, we're going to start a descent, and we're going to put a frequency of 111.9er into our nav1 radio. 111.9er is the localizer frequency for Kai Tak. On our localizer heading, we're going to put a heading of 088. And we're just going to continue a nice easy 20-degree turn until we are headed for the shallow 1 NDB. Now at this point we're headed to the shallow 1 NDB. The needle on our ADF is pointing us straight to the NDB. And one thing to remember is that we don't have distances to the NDB, at least not in this airplane. So how are we going to know that we're over the NDB? First, the needle is going to start moving faster, and as we're overflying the NDB, the needle will swing around 180 degrees as it's following the NDB. At that point, we'll know we have overflown the NDB. As we get closer, the needle is going to start moving faster. And there it goes. It's swinging around. We have just overflown the NDB. Immediately, we're going to turn to a heading of 045. And as we're turning, we can look at the localizer needle. The needle is live, it's coming in. So let's start a turn to intercept the localizer on a heading of 088. We're at 4,500 feet. Let's level off at 4,500 feet. Usually the glide slopes will intercept them at about 2,000 feet, 2,500 feet, but we're at 4,500 here. That's when we're supposed to intercept the glide slope on this approach. Because we're so high, the needle is live.
Flaps 20.
And at this point, you can see how the glide slope is coming in. The glide slope needle is centered. We are at the final approach fix, landing gear down.
Gear down.
And let's start our descent.
And long, 3 green.
Now, as we remember from our from the approach plate briefing, the glide slope pitch on this approach is 3.1 degrees. And at our ground speed of about 165, 175 knots, we're going to have to descend at about 950 feet per minute. So let's put in the 950 feet per minute rate of descent, and that should keep that glide slope needle centered. At the same time, we have centered our localizer, and one thing to remember about localizers and VORs for that matter is that we never want to fly the needle. We don't want to chase that needle all around. What we want to do is we want to pick a heading, fly that heading for a while. If the needle does not stay centered, then we'll adjust our heading, center the needle, and readjust our heading. So what we're doing right now is that this needle is centered. We know that we have some wind coming from our right side, so what we're going to do is we're going to fly a heading of about 093, 094 and see if that maintains this needle centered. If it doesn't, we'll make little adjustments and get that needle centered. But as I said, we're going to fly headings. This is very important. If you don't fly headings and you're chasing that needle, you're never going to get it centered. So it's very important to pick a heading and to fly it and then make adjustments as you go. So we're looking good right now. The glide slope needle is centered, the localizer needle is centered, our airspeed is looking good, altitude is looking good, and we're looking good right now. I'm very happy with this approach so far. The next thing that's going to happen is we're going to overfly our outer marker. That is going to be like a checkpoint for us. At the outer marker, we need to be at about 1,750 feet. So when this outer marker light turns on, we should be at about 1,750 feet. This is just another way to check that we are where we're supposed to be. It's all nice when the instruments work, when the glide slope is working, but what happens if it breaks and the needle is staying centered? The way to check that is with our checkpoints.
Flaps 25.
The outer marker displays and sounds are different for every airplane. In this one, the blue light over here should turn on, and in this case our co-pilot will tell us we're at the outer marker. So there we go, 1,850 feet.
Outer marker.
Outer marker, 1760. Good. We got it. We hit it right on the money. Now the next thing to remember is that we need to switch to visual as soon as possible. So right now we just picked up the rabbit lights, we're switching to visual. From this point on we're going to fly visually. We'll cross check with our instruments to double check, but from this point on we are flying visually.
Flaps 30.
There are two things that are going to matter at this point for Kai-Tak. One is going to be those lead-in lights. Now we have those lead-in, those rabbit lights, we have them in sight. So we're going to aim our airplane for the beginning of those rabbit lights. The second thing that's important is our altitude.
1,000 feet.
At the middle marker, we need to be at 660 feet.
Flaps 40.
The middle marker in this airplane is the little orange light. The co-pilot is not going to say anything, but the orange light will go on. The glide slope is still working, so we can cross-check with our glide slope needle to make sure we're at the altitude. Okay, we have the checkerboard in sight. 650 feet, middle marker, we're looking good. We're looking good. Now the only thing that's left is doing the last turn.
100 to minimums.
Because we're going 150 knots, this last turn will be a pretty steep bank turn. We have to remember that we have a lot of crosswind coming from our right side. So as we're coming out of this turn, aside from our altitude and airspeed, we have to gauge our wind pretty quick. Once we have gauged the wind right, we're going to let it work for us. We can use the wind to put us in the position that we want. There's the windsock. Wow, look at that crosswind.
100. 50. 30. 10.
Let's dip our wing into the crosswind. There it is. Center line. We put this plane on the center line. Not too bad at all. Let's take a look at our flight path.